And we're going to turn now to one of the top Republicans on Capitol Hill, House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan. Congressman, thank you for joining us. You just released a budget, and let's take a quick look at it. You call for $5.3 trillion in spending cuts, $2 trillion in tax cuts, and you would reduce the top bracket to 25%. Are you asking everyone to sacrifice in this budget?
Well, first of all, yes. We're putting the budget on a path to balance and to pay the debt off. We want to avoid a debt crisis. The president's budget brings us closer to a debt crisis. And we're not proposing tax cuts. We're proposing to keep revenues where they are, but to clear out all the special interest loopholes, which are uniquely enjoyed by higher income earners in exchange for lower rates for everyone. A simpler, flatter, more competitive tax system to create jobs and economic growth and bring at least as much revenue into the government as we're bringing now, but in a fair way so that everybody pays the same tax rate when they make the same amount of money instead of picking winners and losers in Washington, which is the kind of tax code that the president's supporting.
But the current tax rate for the wealthiest Americans is 35%. You would reduce it to 25%. And the White House says that under your plan, you would give millionaires in this country a $150,000 tax cut.
Those numbers are obviously not credible. But the point I would say is 8 out of 10 of our businesses in America filed their taxes as individuals. The president says their top tax rate in January should go to 44.8% effectively. Here's the problem. All of our competitors overseas are lowering tax rates on their businesses. Canada just went to 15. And President Obama is saying the tax code that individual small businesses pay goes up to 45. We will lose jobs if we go down that path. We're saying get rid of the tax shelters, the interest group loopholes, and lower everybody's tax rates. You'll get more of their income subject to taxation, but at a simpler, fair system. There's a bipartisan consensus that this is the best way to go for jobs and the economy. Unfortunately, the president's proposing the opposite, higher tax rates and more loopholes, and we think that's wrong.
You also include changes to Medicare and cuts in Medicaid, $810 billion in cuts to Medicaid. How can you guarantee people that you're not giving tax cuts to the wealthiest and taking away aid to the poor?
Because we want economic growth and job creation, and the tax code is stifling job creation. And what we propose in Medicaid is let the governors in the states give them the flexibility to customize Medicaid to meet the unique needs of their populations. In Wisconsin, our Medicaid population and problems are different than they are in New York, but they have the same.
But you don't deny that you're cutting $810 billion for Medicaid
we
for the poorest
get $810
Americans.
billion in savings, but we still grow Medicaid each and every year under our formula. But we're saying block grant to the states so they can decide how best to achieve these savings. On Medicare, the president's health care law caps Medicare spending, but he puts a board of 15 unelected bureaucrats in charge of cutting Medicare in ways that deny care to current seniors. We say get rid of the board and put 50 million seniors in charge of their own Medicare instead of having these 15 bureaucrats make those decisions.
Last year, you proposed a budget very similar to this. It was considered political suicide. There was an independent organization that ran an ad of you pushing a grandmother off the cliff. Why would you do that again this year, propose a similar budget? The Democrats are going to take this budget and try and wrap it around the Republican Party's neck for this election.
Because we believe we have a moral and legal obligation to stop this debt crisis from happening. We have the most predictable economic crisis, a debt crisis, coming in the country, and to ignore it is wrong. We think we owe the country solutions. We think we owe the country a path to prosperity to get the American idea back, get people back to work, and get this debt under control. The president's making it worse, and the Senate hasn't passed a budget for 1,000 days. They're not even trying to solve this problem. So even though we're going to get all these ads, we still think we have an obligation to put solutions on the table.
Mitt Romney says he supports your plan. Are you convinced he's a fiscal conservative?
Absolutely.
And are you convinced if he were president that he would enact your budget?
Yeah, I think I'm not expecting everybody to enact every little piece of this, but yes, he and the other candidates running for president have embraced these kinds of reforms because we know it's the best way to save and strengthen the Medicare guarantee,
so if Mitt Romney became president of the United States, you're convinced he would follow through with a lot of the reductions that you make in this plan?
Yes.
And you're not concerned that this is going to hurt your party in November?
Not at all, because I think the country's smarter than this. People in America are ready to be talked to like adults. They don't want to be pandered to like children. And we feel we owe the country a sharp, clear difference, a choice of two futures, so they can decide what kind of country we want to be, what kind of people we want to be in the 21st century. The president has us on a path of debt and decline. We owe the country an alternative path, And this is the choice that we feel we are obligated to give them. And I think that they're going to make the right choice. And we'll save this country from a debt crisis.
You have been mentioned as a rising star in the Republican Party. Would you consider a vice presidential nomination?
You know, it's just something I'm not even considering right now. I'm so focused on my job in Congress. If I wanted to be president or vice president so badly, I would have run for president. You know, I don't, so I didn't. Let's not underestimate how important Congress is in all of this. And I'm focused on trying to prevent a debt crisis with my job as chairman of the Budget Committee.
But you would consider it if someone
I would consider it, but it's not even something in my mind because it's a decision someone else makes at a later time. It's a bridge I haven't gotten close to having to cross. So in the meantime, I think it's important to do my job and give the country a choice and try and prevent a debt crisis from taking down our economy and destroying the livelihood of our children.
All right, Congressman Paul Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.